It was late June when the heat started making everything feel heavier. I was already exhausted from a long week at work, and when my car suddenly broke down on my way home from the grocery store, I nearly burst into tears right there in the parking lot. I had no idea what was wrong with it, and being someone who could barely even refill windshield wiper fluid, I stood there completely helpless. I called roadside assistance, but it would take hours before anyone could reach me. That's when I remembered that my nephew, Josh, was staying with us for the summer. Josh had just turned 22 and was studying mechanical engineering at a state university. He was always tinkering with things, taking apart radios, fixing old fans, and lately, he'd been helping his professor restore a vintage car. He had a natural knack for anything mechanical. I decided to give him a call. He answered right away. "Hey, Aunt Caroline, what's up?" he asked, cheerful as always. I explained the situation, half embarrassed to even ask, but without hesitation, Josh offered to come find me. When he arrived, wearing a grease-stained t-shirt and baseball cap turned backward, I couldn't help but laugh a little. He looked like he walked straight out of a repair shop. "Let's see what we're working with," he said, and popped the hood. I stepped back and watched, feeling a strange sense of admiration for how confidently he moved. After about 20 minutes of fiddling and murmuring to himself, he closed the hood and grinned.
"Try it now," he said.
I got in and turned the key. Like magic, the engine roared to life. I couldn't believe it.
"Josh,
"What did you do?" asked in awe. He shrugged modestly. "Loose wire near the ignition coil. Nothing too crazy." Nothing too crazy? It felt like he'd just saved me from a $100 towing fee and hours of waiting in the sun. I gave him the biggest hug and promised him his favorite dinner that night, my famous baked ziti. Back at home, Josh helped me carry in groceries. I kept thanking him, but he just waved it off. "Seriously, it was nothing," he said, but I could tell he appreciated the gratitude. Over dinner, we got to talking. I asked him more about his studies, his interests, what he hoped to do after graduation. He told me he was hoping to open a garage someday. "Not just any garage," he added. "I want it to be a community place, where people can come learn how to fix their own stuff, even if they can't afford a mechanic." I was genuinely impressed. It was rare to hear such a thoughtful goal from someone his age. I realized how much he'd grown since he was the lanky teenager who used to leave soda cans on my coffee table during family holidays. After dinner, we stayed up talking even longer. It had been ages since I had such a relaxed, sincere conversation with someone. It made me feel lighter somehow. The next day, Josh asked if he could take a look at the car again. "Just to make sure nothing else is off," he said. I handed him the keys, and he got to work in the driveway while I cleaned up the house. A few hours passed, and he came in with a sheepish look on his face. "Okay, so I may have gone a little overboard," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He motioned for me to follow him outside. I stepped into the driveway and stopped in my tracks. My car looked different, better, shinier. He had cleaned every part of it, fixed a minor dent I hadn't even mentioned, and replaced my old, crusty windshield wipers with brand new ones.
"Josh,"
I gasped. "You didn't have to do all this."
he grinned.
I wanted to. Consider it my way of saying thanks for letting me crash here for the summer. It felt like the most unexpected, heartfelt gesture I had received in a long time. I was deeply touched. But then, he pulled something else out of his backpack. "I've been working on a project," he said. "It's a car diagnostic tool. I built it myself. Want to try it?" He showed me a small device with wires and a screen. He plugged it into the port beneath the dashboard and pressed a few buttons. A moment later, the screen lit up with data. It tells you what might be going wrong before it becomes a problem. I thought you might want to test it out. My jaw dropped. "Josh, this is incredible. You built this yourself?" He nodded, and I could tell he was proud of it. "I'm still working out a few bugs, but yeah, I think it could help a lot of people." He gave me the prototype to keep and asked me to write down anything I noticed or liked about it. I was stunned by his thoughtfulness and intelligence. Over the next few weeks, Josh became something of a local legend in the neighborhood. Word got around that he could fix just about anything, and neighbors started dropping by asking if he could take a look at their bikes, lawnmowers, or even old appliances. He never charged a cent. He just smiled and said, "Happy to help." I watched him with a kind of quiet pride, realizing that what he did for me was just a glimpse of the good he was capable of doing in the world. But what really floored me happened a few weeks later. I was coming home from work and found Josh sitting in the driveway with Mr. Patterson, our elderly neighbor from 3 houses down. Mr. Patterson's old Ford hadn't worked in years. I knew he couldn't afford repairs, and he'd been taking the bus everywhere. Josh had completely restored the vehicle. He'd been working on it in secret, salvaging parts from junkyards and doing everything by hand. The look on Mr. Patterson's face when the engine finally turned over was something I'll never forget. He teared up and hugged Josh like he was family. That moment was so genuine, so beautiful, it stayed with me for days. Later that evening, I sat down with Josh on the porch. "You really went all out," I said. He looked out at the sunset and nodded. "I just feel like if I can help make someone's life easier, even in small ways, it's worth it." I told him how proud I was of him and how lucky I felt to have him around. He smiled a little bashfully and said, "You always believed in me, even when I was just the kid who broke your vacuum trying to fix it." We both laughed, remembering that story. Over the summer, Josh didn't just fix my car. He reminded me of how powerful it is to give without expecting anything in return. How small, kind gestures can ripple out in ways we don't always expect. His presence in my life that summer changed something in me. I started paying more attention to the people around me, offering to help where I could, even if it was just lending an ear or baking cookies for a neighbor. When Josh finally packed up to head back to college, the house felt strangely empty. But he left behind more than tools and car parts. He left behind inspiration. And I knew, deep down, that whatever road he decided to take in life, he'd leave that same mark wherever he went. I still drive the same car, and it runs better than it ever did before. Every time I turn the key and hear the engine hum to life, I think of Josh and that summer. And it always makes me smile,